This is a Fox News Alert. I'm Brett Baer in Washington. An American public that has for years been bombarded by books, TV shows, and movies about a global apocalyptic epidemic is now sweating out the possibility, however remote, of the real thing. More people who had contact with a man in Dallas who has been diagnosed with the Ebola virus are being isolated tonight as fears of exposure grow. This includes children. And there are new calls for the U.S. government to step up screening of airline passengers headed this way. Correspondent Casey Stiegel is at Ground Zero in Dallas, where Patient Zero has almost everyone there concerned.
It is a devastating situation for everyone, period.
A shaken property manager at the Dallas apartment complex where the man who brought the first case of Ebola to the United States had been staying with family. Texas health officials issued a public health order to 4 members of Thomas Duncan's family who live at this complex. It legally requires them to stay indoors and not have any visitors until October 19th, when the virus incubation period is over. So far, the CDC says nobody has shown any symptoms of the deadly illness.
There could be additional cases who were already exposed. If that occurs, systems are in place so that they will not further spread Ebola.
Today, the Texas Department of State Health Services expanded the number of those who may have had contact with the patient to 100. That includes 8 children who attend 5 different schools around the Dallas area. Officials believe Thomas Duncan contracted the deadly virus on September 15th while helping carry a sick pregnant woman to a hospital in Liberia who later died from Ebola. 4 days later, he boarded a plane to Dallas with lengthy layovers in Brussels and Dulles. Earlier this month, President Obama, while speaking at the CDC, discussed this very issue.
We've been taking the necessary precautions, including working with countries in West Africa to increase screening at airports so that someone with the virus doesn't get on a plane for the United States.
But it only works if passengers comply. According to a questionnaire the Associated Press obtained, Thomas Duncan answered no when asked whether he had had contact with anybody infected with Ebola. And tonight, Liberian officials say they plan on prosecuting Duncan for lying. As for U.S. regulations, there are reports that 4 years ago the Obama administration quietly scrapped quarantine regulations proposed during the Bush administration to detain sick airline passengers and those exposed to certain diseases. And back out here live at the hospital tonight where that patient is being treated, some are also beginning to question the CDC and the airline screening procedures right here at home. Take a look at this ER doctor from Georgia who donned this quarantine suit and claimed that he was not asked the proper questions while he was heading through a security checkpoint at the Atlanta airport earlier this week. Brett?
Casey Stiegel in Dallas. Casey, thank you. More on this with the panel. There is another health issue in the U.S. which is much more pervasive than Ebola right now, and people are concerned about it. The CDC says 42 states, marked in light blue here, are reporting cases of respiratory illness caused by enterovirus D68. A total of 514 cases have been confirmed, almost all of them in children. The virus has been found in 4 children who have died, but its role is still unclear. Now to the president's effort to try to turn the page. Guarded by a Secret Service under new emergency management, burdened by ongoing upheaval in Asia and the Middle East, and of course the developing Ebola spread, President Obama is trying to get back to the issue he wants to talk about, the economy. But there is a direct split in the country on that topic, with 43% saying things are getting better and 43% saying they are getting worse. That could be good news for congressional Republicans. With about a month to go before Election Day, likely voters favor the Republican candidate 47-40 in our latest poll. We'll talk about the Senate a bit later. The president made his economic pitch today in his adopted home state. Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry reports tonight on whether it's working.
For President Obama, yet another pivot back to the economy, except this time with a twist. The president tried to leverage the crises piling up on his watch, from ISIS to Ebola, to say that when alarm bells go off, it's the strength of the economy that allows America to play a leadership role.
This is who the world calls, America. They don't call Moscow, they don't call Beijing, they call us.
Yet the speech came as new questions were raised about the president's own handling of the foreign crises, with his former defense secretary Leon Panetta suggesting in a new book the president dropped the ball by not leaving a small U.S. force behind in Iraq. And now the, quote, ISIS offensive in 2014 greatly increases the risk that Iraq will become al-Qaeda's next safe haven. While his predecessor, President George W. Bush, said in an exclusive interview with Fox News at his annual golf tournament for wounded warriors, he agreed with General Martin Dempsey's proposal to leave behind a residual force of 10 to 15,000 U.S. troops in Iraq.
I understand how tough the job is, and to have a former president, bloviating and second guessing is, I don't think, good for the presidency or the country. He and his team will make the best informed decisions they can make, but I agreed with General Dempsey's assessment.
Panetta is more withering in his new book, while the president has blamed the pullout on former Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki refusing to sign a status of forces agreement. Panetta contends that civilian and military leaders at the Pentagon argued the U.S. had leverage against Maliki and could have threatened to cut off U.S. aid. According to an excerpt in Time magazine, Panetta writes, quote, but the president's team at the White House pushed back, and the differences occasionally became heated. And those on our side viewed the White House as so eager to rid itself of Iraq that it was willing to withdraw rather than lock in arrangements that would preserve our influence and interests. Today, though, retired General David Petraeus, the leader of President Bush's 2000 surge of U.S. troops, gave this president cautious support.
I think that the strategy on which we're embarked has a reasonable chance of success.
And on the economy, the president is not getting a ringing endorsement either in the latest Fox poll. Asked if they're better off today than in 2008, 24% say better, 28% say worse, 47% say the same. As for the president's signature health care law, 54% say they wish it never passed. 37% are glad it passed. Though today at Northwestern, the president took a shot at Fox News as he noted the law is here to stay.
While good, affordable health care might seem like a fanged threat to the freedom of the American people on Fox News, it turns out it's working pretty well in the real world.
Now, the president also noted that while he will not be on the ballot, his policies will be a realization. His legacy is on the line in November. But Republicans say he just nationalized the elections, and now there'll be a referendum on him. Brett?
Ed Henry, live on the North Lawn. Ed, thank you. Some help may be on the way for the forces fighting ISIS on the ground. Turkish lawmakers have authorized getting involved in a fight right in their own backyard. Senior Foreign Affairs correspondent Greg Palcott is on the Turkish border with Syria.
This is one of the front lines in the U.S.-led war on ISIS, the Syrian town of Kobani. Kurdish-held, but under attack. ISIS has been pounding it for days. The U.S. has recently been hitting back with airstrikes, to no avail. The terrorists march on. All the while, Turkish forces look on, just across the border.
With ISIS-held territory just a couple of miles away inside Syria, these Turkish troops are holding their ground. Not in any war with the terrorists, but holding back these Kurdish politicians and activists. They want the government here to do more against the militants.
Turkey might be doing exactly that. The Turkish parliament voting overwhelmingly to authorize military involvement against ISIS. That could include the U.S. using nearby Turkish bases for airstrikes. And the well-trained Turkish military contributing to what is widely seen as a crucial ground element to the ISIS war.
Sayın Genel Sekreter,
but there are hitches. Like many others here, Turkish President Erdogan also wants Syrian President Assad to go, not just ISIS. And they also don't want to encourage Kurdish independence, an issue in Turkey. The vote authorizes a safe haven inside Syria for refugees. 160,000 have fled into Turkey from ISIS in the last week. We came here because we are afraid of getting killed, this refugee said. We are devastated. They kill everyone. We have nothing left. As Turkey is a NATO member, the alliance has said if Turkey is attacked by ISIS, it will come to its defense. This new terror war is getting more complicated. Near the Turkey-Syria border, Greg Palcott, Fox News.
The U.S. military is warning its personnel to be vigilant after ISIS terrorists have called on supporters to target military family homes. Fox News has obtained a special assessment from the Army Threat Integration Center. The advisory is similar to bulletins from the FBI and Homeland Security. One jihadist tweet urges followers to, quote, show up at military homes and slaughter them. Tomorrow, here on Special Report, I will talk with Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson live in studio about the terrorist threats facing the homeland from ISIS and other groups, the upheaval at the Secret Service, Ebola, and border security. Tomorrow night, right here at 6 p.m. Eastern. If you have a question for the panel tonight on Ebola or the economy, tweet me at Brett Baer. You can use the hashtag #TweetThePanel, and we may read a few of them later in the show. Up next, the Taliban pushes back in deadly fashion after Afghanistan signs a new military partnership agreement with the U.S. First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates across the country are covering tonight. Fox 5 in New York with what is being called a freak accident that left a Long Island high school football player dead. 16-year-old Tom Kutanelov collapsed following a collision during the third quarter of last night's game. The school superintendent says that death is under investigation. Fox 32 in Chicago with the cancellation of hundreds of flights at O'Hare and Midway airports. Officials blame incoming thunderstorms and the recent fire at a nearby FAA air traffic control facility. Of course, ripple effects are being felt now throughout the country. And this is a live look at San Francisco from our affiliate there, KTVU. The big story there tonight is a daring rescue of some window washers trapped outside a downtown Oakland high-rise. The building security employee says the washers were stuck because of an equipment problem. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We'll be right back.